who else shows up.
Okay.
Did you guys see anything good this week?
No.
Uh,
Random side note, but I'm in the middle of installing Premiere Pro right now, and like you have to put in your credit card information in order to get the free trial. But I found it interesting because like they set the default to the monthly annual plan. So if you miss that, like if you don't forget, I mean, if you do forget to like cancel the subscription, you're just stuck with it for the rest of the year. Like, ooh, I changed
yeah.
it to the monthly one, but like by default it's set to the yearly, and I was like, Jesus Christ, no, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird. Like they're totally, I mean, yeah. They're a reputable company, but reputable companies now just do these sleazy things, you know? It's like how is that
Yep.
okay? Like if your friend did that to you, you wouldn't be okay with it, you know?
Hmm.
Like I don't know. I don't know. The world is it's yeah. It's weird now. They shouldn't do that. But anyway,
Yeah.
so do you guys have a way to set an alarm or something, an appointment so you can cancel your subscription?
Yeah, I haven't done that yet, but I will do that. I'll do that now actually, so I don't forget.
Yeah. Um, yeah, we're gonna have well, I keep wanting to talk about class, but I'm not gonna talk about class because I'll end up repeating it. Matthew, you like mainly action movies, right? Is that your like the thing if you're gonna relax and be entertained, that's what you like.
Well, I mean, I like all kinds of films, but my favorite ones were lean toward the rom-com side.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like American
But,
rom-com or different types of rom-coms?
well, the ones that I really enjoy usually the
K-dramas.
K-drama or the Taiwanese dramas, those kinds. So they're pretty.
So which
I
ones
like
again?
the Korean dramas or just Taiwan dramas. Those are
Oh,
pretty
okay,
fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But actions are, I like them as well.
Hmm, hmm. Um, uh, it's funny because Korea, like 20 years ago, they did not have a good film industry, and they just they got really aggressive about building an industry, and now they're, as big as anybody, really.
Yeah, they started pumping like a ton of money into the film industry.
Sometimes people do that and it doesn't work, but they did it and it worked, which is cool. Yeah, but they're like world-class film now. Hey, Ken, I got your email, but I didn't look at it yet. I'll go through it after class, okay?
All right. Yeah. Thank you. I was actually just talking about last week. I was absent. I wrote you why, and I also talked about my homework this week.
Okay. I'll go through everything later this afternoon.
Because the problem is, since last week I wasn't here, I don't know what you did with the groups.
Okay.
So
I think there'll be a couple of films that we're going to see today. But you and I will figure out a solution for your stuff after class. Hey, Paola, how are you?
I'm good. It just got really cold in New York. So, well, not really cold because it could get really cold, but it's like at 55 degrees. So now I just wake up with my feet cold, and my landlady still has to put the radiator on.
Yeah, there's some kind of weird, like if you look at are you in like a rent control or rent stabilized apartment?
Yeah.
Okay, I think in the lease there's something crazy, like they have to turn on the heat like when it's like 32 degrees or something like that.
Yeah. So now I just have my coffee with me, and it's like my one source of heat right now.
It was 64 degrees in Atlanta yesterday, so for us it was cold, I think.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, but not like that. Yeah, when I was a kid, there'd be like 1 or 2 days each winter in New York where you'd go outside and you'd be like, there is no reason for humans to live here. It would just be so cold, like your face would hurt. And I would just be like,
Yeah, it was so weird because I I went to a gifted middle school. I feel like that middle school just made me feel like more, I don't know, anxious than what I already was. So it's like kind of reversing some things. But I remember it would be snowing and we wouldn't have a snow day, but still there would be some like sporty or athletic kids who would just go up to school in basketball shorts, and they just wear basketball shorts all year. It was crazy.
Yeah, yeah. It's 8:05. Okay, so, let me run attendance. Hey, Harrison, good to see you. Paula's here. Harrison's here. Anna's here. Andrew's here. And Matthew, I can't remember. You're traveling. You're taking. Matthew's going to join us. You're from the. Sorry, I can't speak. It's too early. Matthew, you're coming from the afternoon class, yeah?
Yep.
So Matthew's going to take this section. Matthew's like 12 hours offset, so it's 8 p.m. for him right now, and he's going to take this section because it'll maybe be a little easier for him. So I want everyone to welcome him to the section. And oh, I had a let me get this stuff up. I had a question for you guys. Is it when I put an announcement up, does everyone see the announcement? I wasn't even sure if that worked. I sent an email as well.
I didn't check Canvas, but I got the email.
Okay. Is there a hey Michael, is there, just for the group, you can, by the way, this is such a tiny class, you can take your mics, unmute your mics unless you're someplace where there's like a leaf blower or something. Michael, when you get a chance, put your camera up. Is it better for people if I put an announcement on Canvas or if I send an email to y'all? Does anyone have an opinion?
I think by default, you get an email notification for any Canvas announcements. I'm not completely sure about that because it does happen for me.
Yeah, I got it too.
Okay. I sent a separate email from Opus. So did you get two? Did you get a Canvas notice and then also an email from Opus with the info? Oh, there's Sia getting busy. Anybody, Harrison, for you, did you get the notices? The about downloading Premiere and the media for today?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, and which do you prefer? Do you prefer that I just put them? It's easier for me to just put everything on, put the announcements on Canvas. But does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Sure.
I
Okay.
will see it on my email.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last thing.
It usually just shows up on my email inbox anyway, so it's like a.
Okay. Michael, for you, which is Canvas okay?
Yeah, it's fine for me.
Okay. Did you guys? I just put the links up in case anyone hadn't done it. Does everyone have Premiere downloaded and installed?
Yep.
Okay. And did you download the media? There's a link below it. I think I had you guys download it for the DaVinci Resolve training. But if you don't already have it, download that folder of media.
The pizza one?
I think it's the pizza one. I haven't opened it. It's the one that it's not the pizza one. This is a different one because Taylor.
Oh, this one. Okay.
Yeah.
This is from when that didn't work.
Yes, this is from one of the
Class.
And the other thing is I want everybody to put an announcement, put an appointment, do whatever you can do to shut off if you're using the free trial. Who's using the free trial? Raise your hands. Okay, just Andrew? Or other people have, hey, do other people have paid subscriptions to Premiere?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Paula and Michael, do you guys have paid subscriptions to Premiere?
Yep.
Oh, Michael, what are you using?
Yeah, I actually have like yeah, a submission, but I'm not sure like how long it will last, but I do have a submission.
A subscription.
Subscription, yes, sorry.
No, 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 no. Don't say sorry. It's I'm terrible at languages, and I, for what it's worth, for anyone here who English is their second language, I went to school in Paris and I dropped out because it was too hard. So you're doing better than I am, okay?
Okay.
um, so okay, I just want to make sure you shut off if you have a free, if you signed up for the free trial that you cancel it, because if you don't cancel it, they're going to charge you like $200. Okay? Okay, so everyone copies that. So today, Juan, are you there? No, she's with us. Okay, so couple of things today. At 9:30, Taylor's going to join us, and she's going to do training in Premiere. Again, I don't care if you use DaVinci Resolve or Premiere. You can use whichever you want. Um, you know, obviously, Resolve is free and Premiere costs money. I want you to take this training and do the work today with, you know, open up Premiere on your computer and follow along with Taylor, because I want you to leave the course saying I'm familiar with Premiere. And if you end up getting a production internship at some point, it'll be helpful that it says that on your resume. It will be helpful if you get any type of production internship or post internship or anything where they're handling media. That they'll feel like you're a more likely candidate if you have that on there, as well as Resolve, really. But Premiere's the one that most places use. Okay, so the work for next week, I'm going to try to rush us through stuff. Oh, could we guys put up links to the movies that you made, the Campus Movie Fest movies you made, so that we can watch them? I'll move them over to watch together. Once you guys have them up. And I just sent you guys the watch together link. Let me pause this. Okay. Let's see. And then,
It says password required to watch.
okay, can you enter the password or does it not let you do that?
We can enter the password, but
I think,
what's the password?
oh yeah, I'll give you the password, but I think I can play it on Watch Together without the, I think I can play it on Watch Together for you guys without you guys having the password. But the password's Marta, M-A-R-T-A, in case it doesn't work. But let's see first. Okay, and we have 3 films. Okay, so first thing I wanted to go through is the assignment for next week, which is to make an observational documentary. So, and what that is you can't add any music to it. You can only use the sound that's in the space that you choose. And it's not about a person, it's about a space. So, what you want to do for an observational documentary is It's actually, it's one of my favorite types of filmmaking because I like to work with actors and I like to work with crews and do lighting and whatnot, but this is really just taking a camera and some way to stabilize it and going to a place that you think is interesting, or a place that you think you can photograph in a way that's interesting, and then listening carefully for sounds of the place and looking for things that are interesting to photograph, and then recording those things. And then you go home and you assemble about 5 minutes of footage into a film. That's the very most interesting elements of the space. Okay. So really what you're doing is you observe a space deeply and present the highlights. That's it. Observe deeply with your camera on record, select the best moments and edit them together. No music unless it exists in the setting. So you don't do anything to spice it up. You just use the images and sound that you record in the space. Does that make sense to people? Okay, how many people discovered on their documentary that bad sound, on their Robfest film, that bad sound ruins your movie? Did anyone? Harrison, you discovered that? Good.
Well,
No, good, that's important. Can you talk to us about that for a second?
Well, I don't know if it completely ruined the movie, but filming outside was so difficult because I kept having to wait for the wind to die down, and even then it didn't sound so good. And it didn't help that the last week I said I didn't have a certain cable I needed to make my microphone work, so I was still using my iPhone mic on that particular day, and so it just, all of the sound in the park was just going towards the camera, and so characters weren't talking loud enough, and you could hear things in the background that didn't need to be heard. It's just so annoying listening to it and trying to find the best take, and just you hear wind just into the camera.
Yeah. Well, here's it. I know. Yeah, no, and it's great that that happened. Honestly, it's great that that happened, because hopefully it's going to make you very conscious of recording sound, and you're going to be smart and thoughtful about it in the future. It's my sincere wish that everyone's Robfest films were ruined by bad sound, because I want you to never get bad sound again. And it takes strategy, and frankly, equipment is a big part of getting good sound. However, even with the iPhones, even with an iPhone, you can get better sound or worse sound. And one strategy, it sounds like you might have been, I haven't seen your film yet, but you might have been filming outside and had 2 people in frame, but you were trying to get the sound from the same iPhone that you were filming from that position. Is that right?
Define what you mean.
I mean that the microphone, the little tiny microphone in the iPhone was the same iPhone that you were filming the people with, so they were far away from the microphone.
Yes, same phone.
Yes, so that's very problematic, because the energy there, when I'm speaking, there's a sound that's coming directly from my mouth, and then there's the sound that's bouncing off the walls, right? But it's all my voice. It's just that it's reflected around the space, even exterior space. And then there's all the background noise in the room. When I'm here, there isn't very much background noise because I have a very nice microphone, right, that I'm speaking to you guys from. I don't know how it's coming out digitally, but does it sound pretty good? This sounds pretty good, right? Even with this good microphone. Well, here's an example. This is a directional microphone. So when I'm talking with this microphone, it sounds good here because the energy from my mouth is going right into it. But if I turn it over like this, it probably doesn't sound as, does it sound different now that I'm away from the microphone? Can you tell the difference? Which would you rather in a movie hear? Would you rather hear me talking like this, or would you rather hear me talking like this? A long time ago in a galaxy far away. So Do you see what a difference the direction and the placement of the mic? Now, here's another thing. If there's a junky table here, so I can't just roll backwards as fast as I want. But if I'm speaking to you from back here, that microphone probably doesn't sound as good. Or it's not that the microphone doesn't sound as good, it's that it's recording a lot of sound from the space in addition to my voice. So I'm not speaking any differently, but the sound is of low quality, right? My voice is of low quality. You're picking up a lot more environment and a lot less of the person's voice. So those people that hold the booms, I think I have a boom here. So this is a boom for recording sound, you know, a boom pole. So those people, they're not just holding a broomstick. I don't actually know how this one works. They're not just, it's a boom pole, B-O-O-M, but it's not just a guy holding like a piece of pipe. It's that person actually has to think very carefully about sound perspective. And Harrison in particular, because I think you're the one that can absorb this the most at this moment, is all that background noise. The person who has the headphones on and they're holding that microphone, they're deciding what combination of direct energy from the actors' mouths and background environment they're going to make the recording with. So they're making a choice of how much environment to hear and how much of the actors' voices to hear. And if they move the microphone further away, they get more of the park and less of the voices. And when they move it very close to the people, then they get just the voices and not much of the environment. So in any case, and oh, by the way, this thing, it's a wind sock. It's to stop the wind. This is the microphone. And then this is the thing that would have helped you the most, I think, with the wind noise. And you bought this, did you buy this thing, this model? So it has a wind sock on it. Yeah, so hopefully soon you'll get to use it, you know? Now, even if you didn't, even if you didn't have that, if you had two iPhones, you could put one of the iPhones in one of the actors' pockets, ideally like a vest pocket, and you wouldn't get amazing sound, but it would be 10 times better than the sound from the camera position. So if anyone gets stuck on sound, like, message me and I'll try to talk you through, with whatever equipment you have, how you can get better sound. Anyone, any questions? Andrew, no, you're good?
Quick question, actually.
Okay.
For the microphone, this it's like really loose here, and then like I know you're supposed to push it back, but every time I do, it's still like if I just move my camera a little bit, it just becomes loose again.
How let me see, bring yours close to your camera, to your lens, to your iMac, your computer. Okay. And I know the answer. I don't know why I'm surprised, I'm a teacher, but see this little ring? Oh, you have it set up in the ring? Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
just like the microphone, it's like the windshield thing itself is like not securely attached, no matter how much I push it in. Like it's securely attached now, but if I just do this, it just like slips off again.
Is it this? Okay, so hold on. Mine doesn't do that. Is it pushed oh, it's not dressed all the way back. Push it all the way back on your microphone as far as it'll go.
I mean, I do, and then it stays there for a bit, but then like usually it just like becomes loose again, which is like kind of annoying sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's like in place, but it's like very flimsy. It's like really easy, like literally just like one hit and it will just like become loose again. I don't understand why.
Yeah, if it makes you really crazy,
tape it on or something.
Well, I'm trying to think. You don't want to do something that's going to impair the, if you're on the base of the microphone and not in the recording area, you can probably take a piece of tape underneath it. It hasn't, well, it would do that if it got a lot of stress. I don't have an answer for you, Andrew. I wish that I did.
Okay. No problem.
Okay, so I just wanted to make that pitch for recording good sound. It is gonna change. It's gonna make your film way better because audiences have an expectation of sound quality, and so when you don't meet that expectation, they think that it's a cheap video, or the people they think that the people don't know what they're doing. You know. Okay, so I talked to you guys about observational documentaries. We're going to go over to Watch Together now, and we're going to try, I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to try to play MARTA. Now, Andrew, I think you just already told me, were you on Watch Together when you said it needed a password?
Yeah.
Darn it.
I mean, after you put in MARTA, it's fine.
Oh, it says it now?
Like,
okay.
the actual video shows up now.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay. So is everyone set up to watch this? Okay. Now I should say, so obviously I'm not showing you a bad example of an observational documentary. I'm showing you a good example. Tara Olei was a very strong student in filmmaking at Emory, and she's a filmmaker now, and she's gotten grants from Kodak and things like that. So this is a perfect example of what I'm hoping you guys generate for next week. And by the way, you can make an observational documentary. You could even make one in your room. It just might be challenging to make it in your room. It's just about thinking deeply about a space or an environment and then documenting it so you can present your thoughts to an audience in audio and in image and sound. Okay? Okay, I'm going to play this, and if people give me a thumbs up once it's playing, then I'll shut my audio off so that it doesn't echo, all right? Guys, if you hit the play or the pause, it will affect it for everybody. It's the movie keeps going back to the beginning. So just so you know, just leave it be and let it play through, okay? Give me a thumbs up if you heard me. Okay, thank you. I think I'm going to try putting up, just so we can watch this with fresh eyes. We're going to look at the group documentaries, the group films from Robfest first, or at least we'll just look at one of them. So this is the way this is going to work. Is who made Quarantine? Raise your hand if you were involved in Quarantine. Andrew and Matthew. Anybody else? Okay, so Andrew and Matthew, you don't get to speak. And Paula, Can, Harrison, Michael, and Juana, each of you needs to have a critique of the film that the filmmakers can hear, all right? They don't get to say anything about their film because when we produce media and distribute it, the audience doesn't get to hear from us what we don't get to say, oh, listen, the sound of the second scene isn't good. They just consume the video. Now, I'll tell you what, Matthew and Andrew, after everyone speaks, you're welcome to defend yourselves, all right? Okay, so are people ready to watch Quarantine? Please move back over to watch together and give me a thumbs up if it's playing for you, and then I'll mute my sound, all right?
Sorry, sir. I have to like re-enter the password, and
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I have to re-enter the password, and I forgot it.
Oh, it's a link in the chat. Did you disconnect from the?
It should still be Marta, Marta.
All right, all right.
Oh, is it? Oh, you won't. Yeah, but you won't need it for this because watching. I'm sorry, Michael. In a second, it'll come up. Quarantine will come up. Just you guys give me a thumbs up if it's.
You entered it. All right. Yeah, I can see it right now.
Good. I'm going to wait and speak after the other folks because I want them all to get practice giving productive critique. So the five of you, lay it on Matthew and Andrew. You're all going to have to speak. So
Okay, so there was a lot I liked about it. I thought it was really nice how you created the contrast between the two characters with like the light and the dark. Very cool. I liked how the guitar that he was playing in the beginning, like the audio dragged into the other scenes. I thought that was also cool. I thought the one part where the other dude was like staring at the blanket with the face, that was funny. I thought it was really nice. Critique, I don't know. Oh, I also, this isn't a critique, this is a nice thing again, but I don't know if that's what critiquing is. Anyway,
so what a critique would
like,
be, critique is a combination of letting the person know the things that you enjoyed or admired, and you say that first, which you've done an excellent job of, so that they're willing, and that makes them more receptive to hear. The next thing you do is tell them some things that would make it even better, or you tell them some problems you had, and then, but the problems should have solutions. The final part is solutions to the problems.
sounds good. Okay. I also, one more thing I did like was the second person when they were waking up. I liked how the eyes POV thing looked. For things that you could make better, I guess I would have thought it would have been cooler to see the two people like in parallel with each other, not so that it, because it kind of felt like two separate short films. I would have done it in a way where like I would have shown scenes of one person, then scenes of another person, then scenes of the first person, like back and forth, but that's just my personal preference. Okay, that's it.
I think I agree that the contrast between the two characters was really good. I like that you were able to accomplish filming in the dark on such a with limited resources. I think it looked really good. I also loved the thing with the eye. I love that it was, I think, two fingers over the camera lens. Um, I agree. I think I would have liked it if the stories were like more intercut as opposed to separate. I also think that maybe some resolution for the little miniature plots would have been nice. Like maybe in the beginning, the guy who ends up being super positive is not so happy about quarantine, but then like learns to find like the positives in that experience, while the other guy maybe starts enjoying the solitude and then starts to enjoy it too much, and it just becomes something worse. Just something to like show a progression in the situation rather than them kind of staying on a high or staying on a low. But overall, I think it was a really good short.
Wait, I'm so sorry to interrupt again, but I just had an idea and I think I'm a genius for this and I think I think this is a good critique. Okay, so I think it would have been a really good way to connect the two stories if the happy dude called the sad dude and they were actually friends or something. And then he was like, I haven't seen you in like 4 months. And then the sad dude is like, yeah, you haven't. I'm lonely. I only talk to people on my computer at 3 a.m. And then like that would have been an actual like intertwining of the two stories. And that would have been crazy. Okay, I'm done.
I really liked your film. Like, I thought it was kind of funny, like the mention of Lana mentioning how Matthew just like looked at a phone, like a picture of a person wrapped in a blanket. I also really like the parallels. I thought that scene of Andrew, I think you were like eating with your grandma or a relative.
My mom.
Oh, your mom? I'm sorry.
She's not there, right? She didn't hear.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I thought that like brilliantly paralleled Matthew's dinner scene, I feel like there could have been more opportunities for parallel, like maybe right after the shot of the fingers over the camera. Just how we had a shot of you waking up Andrew, we could have had a shot of Matthew just looking all doom and gloom in his bed and just, maybe like with a weighted blanket on or something.
I love the shots, especially in the beginning, where there's like lots of colors and the person is happy and you're eating with your mom and then you're looking at the city and everything. And then I think the transition is also nice to the darker side, I would say. And I also love the eye-opening shot where you're like doing this. But just like Harrison, I also kind of expected like some sort of a turning point in this story, but besides that, I think it was beautiful.
Just another thing for me, when Matthew was looking at the computer screen, maybe the lighting could have been better. Like, I don't know. Whenever I feel like people have insomnia or whatever in movie scenes, it's always like not saturated, but like the screen of the brightness really highlights the eye bags and the other signs of like just sadness.
I really love the parallel of in the movie, and I mean, like, there are shots that corresponds to each other, like before and after the transition, and also like the contrast between like color tone or um like different shots, like different angles and shots, like for two different persons, and uh what I found, like, I was confused when the transition part. I was confused because I couldn't hear the voice clearly. I didn't like. I'm not sure whether you're going to have like to make it not clear enough, or you just like uh because of the mic or something. But I think it's better for like to have like a louder voice in the transition part. And also like I found, like as Anna said, I think you have to have like a resolution in the end. Like there's a contrast and why. Like there's a why, and then you have like I think it's better to have a resolution that like tells what you want to like uh what you want to tell the audience about certain stuff like that. Yeah. But I really like, all in all, I really love the movie. Yeah.
Okay, so good work, you guys. So Matthew and Andrew, I think technically and aesthetically, there's all sorts of good stuff in it. The visuals are really strong. Um, the visuals are really strong. It's you can see that you're using a DSLR, and it's done. You're taking advantage of it. The lighting is thoughtful. Here's the thing: is the eye-opening shot? What type of shot is that? This is a question for anybody.
POV.
And what do you need in order to have a POV shot?
Like a shot of the person.
Yeah, was that in there? I didn't see it.
Mhm.
So it's a cool shot. It would be cooler if you were on the person's face and they're asleep and they just start to do that, and then you cut to that shot. Then the audience will be with the character. The audience will have more connection to the character, and that's 100 years of film language in every country, and it's not that that's good or bad. It's just what like virtually any film audience in the world would expect. It's like using the before a noun, which is not well, it is a criticism. I was about to say it's not a criticism, but it's a criticism. And then the other thing, and some other people have said this, but this is what I'd say to you guys and think. I can't remember. Are you guys business students? I can't remember. Okay, so development is in filmmaking, whether you're just an artist, whether you're an artist or whether you're in commercial filmmaking, development is a big deal. And it would be like the way to move the movie to the next level the most effectively would be to spend more time in pre-production developing the story. And for a story to work, you need to have an interesting character. Arguably, you have two interesting characters. They need to have a problem that the audience understands and wants resolved. In every movie, in every story, every book you read, that's the way that works. No, I should say, just because this is a special week, the observational documentary doesn't have that. It's doing a different thing, which is just showing somebody a space. It's non-narrative. But in a story, you need characters to go through trying to resolve a problem, whether it's a comedy like Dodgeball. Like, has anyone seen the movie Dodgeball? Okay, totally dumb movie. I mean, I like it, but it's a dumb movie, right? It follows the same rule that like Mother, follows, or like any like masterpiece drama has the same relationship to problems and resolution. And so that would be the thing I would say is, if you had this to do over, spend 4 hours together stewing over how to make the story work. And I had a proposal based on what Juana had suggested about the two friends Zooming each other. It's very valuable to have, if characters have a relationship, it's very valuable to see them on screen together, because it makes the audience, it cements the relationship, see them on screen in the same shot. And in this particular case, since the tension is about how you deal with quarantine, if the dark friend was like, I haven't seen you in 4 months, and the the positive friend was like, we see each other every day, we're on Zoom together, this is as close as anything. And the dark friend's like, it's not the same because I can turn you off. And the positive friend's like, no, it is, we're connected. And then the dark friend just shuts off Zoom. That could be like a cool ending, because it does tell, like, this isn't real, this is real, but this isn't the same, right? Zoom isn't the same. And that might be a way to do that, to make a powerful cap to your point. But very good work, you guys. And it looked great, by the way. Okay, do you guys want to watch Marta, or do you want to watch another one of the Robfest movies next? Anyone have an opinion? We're going to do both. So is everyone chilled out enough? Have you had like your visual palettes cleansed so you can watch Marta with new eyes all the way through? Okay, we're going to do Marta. And the password, in case it asks for it, the password is Marta, M-A-R-T-A. Okay, I'm going to go back over to watch together, and then I'll mute the sound once I get a thumbs up from people that it's actually playing. Okay. Can anyone talk about the movie we just saw? Did you do you feel like you understand the space? Matthew, do you have any thoughts about it? How did it work, the movie?
So like just you select I guess a big place, like at least just a general area that you could just go into the small details to film different details, I guess.
Okay, but you could also make a movie like that of the room that you're in right now, but you would need to do a lot of very close shots, I think, of like dust in the corner. I'm not saying your room's dirty, but if it was at my house, there would be a lot of dog hair and, but then I'd film the lamp on the ceiling. Did anyone, can anyone talk about the relationship to sound? How does the film deal with sound?
I feel like it clashes a lot, especially towards the beginning when there was a shot of this sign, like this specific like train stop sign, and it was like very, very like, well, it was like still kind of noisy, but not as noisy as it could have been, because then the next shot it was like just the noise of the train coming in, and that, well, like inside my head, like it made me like kind of jump a little bit. So
Okay. So is the sound, when you say clashing, is it accidentally clashing or is it intentional?
I feel like it's intentional. Like she obviously knew what she was doing when she had something that's so kind of low paired up with something that like is like so noisy. So
Okay, and for folks that have ridden on American public transportation, does that describe the space? Does it seem accurate? Can people talk about, is there just one sound? Is it just like loud train? Does anyone observe or hear any nuance in the sound?
Is there one scene where they took apart the speaker sound? Not the speaker, but the whatever the announcer was saying, and then they put it with the. They muted the background noise and they just put in the announcer voice over it, I think. So one point.
Yeah, they had the public address system sound, but I think it was probably the sound in the shot, and that the audio recorder, the microphone was close to the PA. And it's the thing that we were talking about with Harrison, that whatever you put close to the microphone is going to be the predominant sound. So even in a very loud place, if your microphone is right next to the speaker for the PA is going to be loud, and all the other noises are going to be softer. So I think she was picking out where to put the sound, where to put the microphone. There's a shot that I was thinking of specifically. I think it's a soda machine. It makes a loud buzz, right? Like a. I'm going to just keep doing that for the rest of the class. No, I'm joking. But it's irritating. It's not a pleasant noise, right? But it's very different than the other irritating noises in the space. When my older daughter was in kindergarten in New York, I would walk to pick her up, and then we would go home on the subway. And one day I picked her up. She was like, 5 years old, and she said, "Daddy, can we take a cab?" And I was like, I'm a pretty cheap person, and so I don't take cabs, And I was like, "Cab? That's kind of fancy. Why do you want to take a cab?" And she was like, "Not fancy." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she said, "The subway is dirty and loud." And I've been on the subway my whole life, and I had forgotten that it's dirty and loud. And it's just like you get used to it, you get numb to it, and you're not aware of the space anymore. Like a blind person can walk around their house, they don't bump into the furniture because they know the space. And we become kind of blind, even though we can see, we become blind to the spaces we habitate. And so what you want to do with the observational documentary is really see, instead of just kind of sleepwalking through a space. You want to think about all the things that are there and sounds that are there. Does anyone have questions about next week's assignment? Y'all good? Okay, I think the next movie we're going to watch is Real Hot Girl Shit. Who are the filmmakers? Raise your hands. Okay, excellent. So you guys don't get to speak. Oh, Matthew and Andrew, did you guys get to explain your film at all? I just realized we didn't allow you to tell the audience what they were supposed to get from it or whatever you needed to do.
We didn't.
Okay, why don't you do that first, and then we'll go into Paula and Juana's movie.
Okay. Well, I think Juana and someone else said that it would have been nicer if like the two individuals had like their shots more like literally like each scene that paralleled each other right next to one another instead of like splitting them up. We did think about that, but ended up not doing it because our scenes, although like some of them, or a lot of them had like very similar concepts, it wasn't like from the exact same angle or like it didn't tell the exact same story kind of. And for what a lot of you guys said about like there not being a conflict or like a resolution or anything, yeah, that was definitely something that we did not spend as much time on that like we should have. Yeah.
Well, a thing that it's hard to realize, it's hard for me to accept is that time spent before shooting, hanging out and talking about the project is the most valuable. It's the most bang for the buck. Like it's going to improve your project more than any crane or actor or anything else, is just spending brain time before you shoot on your story. It's well worth it to do that. Matthew, what do you got? Do you want to tell us anything?
I forgot that, not forgot, but I just didn't think about after you shoot the POV, you should have like a close up or thing on the face. I didn't think about that. On the film, there was another clip that we didn't include inside, but it was just showing that I was waking up and then actually doing the sitting up and then looking at the window scene, but we didn't include that. So that was the one thing that we didn't think really thoroughly about that.
Well, you're in school, so I think the next time you will think about it. Okay, Paula and Juana, you ready? You guys give me a thumbs up if this is playing and I'll mute my sound. Wait, am I in the right movie? No, I'm not. Sorry. You guys good?
I live in a quaint apartment.
Okay. So I'm going to leave it to, it's all boys. I'm going to leave it to the boys to speak first. You've all got to speak. It's easier to speak first instead of being at the end and having to say, yeah, what everyone else said.
I'll go first then. I really like the idea of putting the still images at the paintings along with your own documentary. That I don't really describe the feeling, but the contrast, not just contrast, but just the putting it as a small pause, and you can actually focus on what what she's saying. Because when she's actually like doing all those dance moves, sometimes get a little bit distracted, and so having those still images really, I guess, puts a little pause, so you can kind of take in what's going on in the background as well as what's going on the screen.
I really like the script, and then like a few of the scenes, like for example, the wine, which made me laugh. And also, like Matthew said, I like the incorporation of all those still images of particular paintings. This is like a little bit because of background knowledge of it. I know you guys aren't in the same place, and based on the shots from Manhattan, quick question, but did you go into the Met to take those pictures of the paintings to incorporate into?
Yeah, I actually.
Can't you answer? Okay, nice. But one part of it that I was a little bit confused by was, like for example, like the subway shots, because like Juana, like her character primarily was just staying home and just like being herself and like dressing up, not to go anywhere, but to stay home. So like the shot of like being in the subway kind of threw me off because it kind of like removed me from that setting. And then also the picture of the Metropolitan, like the glass ceiling kind of, because like before that, because like with the incorporation of the pictures, the paintings, at first I was under the impression that they were Juana's paintings, but then like going to the Metropolitan, I don't know, maybe that kind of threw me off because I was like, are these Juana's paintings or are these like just paintings that she's seeing in the Met? So yeah.
I love the script too. I think it was beautiful. It was funny and everything. And the ending was, I think, in my opinion, the best part, where Oana says, I don't even know if I want to go back to painting. Because I think it's like a general reflection of how someone at some point has felt during the quarantine. Just one thing was, along with what Andrew has just said, I also agree that the shots outside the house were kind of like out of the blue. I did not understand what was happening there, but that was the only thing with the story that disturbed me.
Like everyone else, I thought the script was great. I thought it was well shot, fantastic. But one thing I thought might have made it even better was I don't know much about like modern art or anything, so I don't know if the paintings you inserted had any sort of specific meaning in your mind or were like based off a certain context. But I think if visually they had more reflected like a change in Juana's character, perhaps that could have heightened like the importance of those shots. Like maybe as the character becomes more and more unmotivated, the imagery becomes like more drab or whatever, just like something to show how her vision as an artist has changed. But all in all, it was fantastic.
One thing I like the most about this film is is the I think is, I don't know like whether you've done this intentionally or something, but I think like most of the shots, like at the beginning and at the middle, it's like two-dimensional. Like there's a Wes Anderson take on whether you feel like how say Oana filmed herself. It's like it's like really um it's suitable in this movie. It's kind of like it corresponds to the like the paintings, the static images used, and I really like about that because there's a consistency in the film, and also the story is just really good. And I'm also confused about like the I was thinking like why you guys use those like outdoors image like films like images or moving images, and I wasn't sure about it. And yeah, I like to hear from you guys like why you put all those moving images in the films. Yeah.
Can I add like one more minor thing? Also, you're on mute. Like throughout the entire video, you were talking about, well, painting, but you didn't. I think it would have been nice if you included like an actual shot of you like actually painting. Yeah.
No, good note, good note. And that type of, unless you see something in a movie, unless you see or hear something, it doesn't exist. And so it's more meaningful to the audience if they see her doing that. Yeah, I thought the visuals are very strong and the mood you created was really strong. It was an excellent choice of music too. The voiceover was recorded well. I think that you know, and these are, you guys throw these together in a week. And so these two so far have been very well constructed for what you, you know, for a week's work. Thank you so much. Shay is here. She's going to say hi for a second.
No.
She's not going to say hi for a second.
No, I will. Hello. Students.
But the story, and again, this is a development thing, and actually this is kind of a great lesson that it's worth it to spend time on story and development. Is the story is a little bit convoluted, like it's hard to keep track of what's happening, because it seems to go in directions that you know, she's inside, and then there's a subway shot, that kind of thing, that contradict one another. What was I going to say? Story's a little convoluted. The other thing is that, and I think and this speaks to it being a little convoluted too, is that if you look at Clueless, have you guys seen Clueless? It's like a great and beloved movie, right? And this movie is kind of a cousin to Clueless in some ways. She is in some ways frivolous, but then she's in some ways frivolous, but then she's demonstrated to be like, she does have superpowers or gifts, right? She gets I think she gets an A on something, and her dad, who's a litigator, says asks her how she got an A, and she says that she argued for it, and he says, oh honey, I love this almost as much as if you actually earned it. And you know, like she which is funny, right? Because and so but it's funny, but it also tells us she has skills. Like, she might seem silly, but she can survive out in the world, you know. And with this character, she seemed to me just frivolous. And then another thing in Clueless is that ultimately it's about finding true love, right? And she succeeds in finding a partner. I think that's what happens in it. Is that right? Yeah. And so it has a resolution. And this, I know you were trying to have the resolution be, you know, maybe I won't even be a painter. But it didn't quite get there. I think if you had 2 weeks to make it, you would have made it perfectly. Okay. Do you guys want to speak, Paula, Juana? Or do you just want to have the experience of being filmmakers and making something and people misunderstanding your work?
About the subway shots, we were trying to kind of pair, like, we're just making her like in Clueless, we're just making her this kind of like sort of shallowy at first glance kind of character. So she's obviously when she does that thing where she's like, oh, and I'm staying up to date on current events, you would have thought that during this time staying up to date would be like looking up Black Lives Matter, looking up at the, I don't know, the wildfires going on in California. So that's why we just like wanted her to stay like clueless to her surroundings, which is also my bad decision for the inclusion of subway shots, because I thought maybe that would be gritty enough. I don't know. I should have just like looked for more, but yeah, I did take that into consideration. It was just like at the final editing portion, I was like, so.
Okay, my turn. So like the initial vision that I had like for the character, I didn't want there to be a character arc because it's like a 4-minute thing of her being like, suddenly I see value in myself through my talent. I don't know, like the reason why I didn't include any paintings, and although this probably should have been made more clear, is that she's like, I could have done like one of her doing something, but I wanted it to be like this person has like no inherent talent in art. So like there's nothing to show and like she's all talk, because the part where she's like, since everyone knows a good painter requires these attributes, like the 3 things I said were the complete opposite of what people consider to be like good art. I wanted it to be more of like a study of someone who's so like ripped from reality and in their own brain due to like, I don't know, being wealthy and considered like pretty, that like that's the only inherent value within that person. And like I used a lot of like big like buzzwords like manifestation and meditating to like create that kind of vibe, but I understand the ways in which that probably like could have been done better. I don't know, that's it. Thanks for watching. You're muted.
Thank you. One last thing. When she's on the terrace, it for me, I don't know if every movie, it exists half as what the filmmaker made and half as what each audience member brings to it. Like each of you has had a different experience in your life, and so you read media differently than one another. And different things work and different things don't work. When she goes out on the terrace, for me, I haven't seen a terrace like that in New York, maybe in Greenpoint or someplace out in the outer boroughs at a low-rise building. And so I was taken out of the movie when I would see the wood paneling on the wood siding on her terrace. And I tried to be, this was my process, as I was like, maybe it's a penthouse, because some penthouses have wood on them. But the thing is, in a penthouse, the people that can afford a penthouse are either, I know a woman who's 100 years old and she's had a penthouse since 1950, and she's not a rich person. But if you live in a penthouse and you've lived in it, you know, you've moved into it in the last 20 years, you're very rich, and you wouldn't have that type of paneling either. And so that moment threw me out of the movie, because I was, and perhaps I'm wrong, but I was confident that was not New York. So, and it's not to say, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's a place in New York and I should go there and check it out. But I miss New York. But anyway, but again, that was something that happened to me, but it probably didn't happen to anyone else that was watching it.
Yeah, that happened to me too, because I'm from New York. But I was just like, oh, I mean, they're in 2 different locations, so. But that's like prior knowledge.
And myself, so like, if I could have totally gone to New York to film that scene, I would have, but I am not there.
Well, here's the trick as a filmmaker, and Matthew, it's not just par for the course. It's that you need to figure out how to make a movie that the audience doesn't have, like they didn't want that shot to have you. They didn't want your inner dialogue during that shot to be like, oh, they tried their best. They wanted, you know, the audience's inner dialogue to be like, yeah, she's on her fabulous, you know, terrace now. And so if you don't have a fabulous terrace, you need to figure out a way to make the audience believe that you have that. Like it might even be just close up of her face with blurry background and then the view of Central Park, you know, with no view of the background. And that's our job as filmmakers to like keep the audience paying attention to our story. So okay, we're gonna watch the last of these, and these are really good, by the way. I think it's Training Buddy. Is that right? Is that the next one? Who are the filmmakers? Raise your hands. Okay, awesome. You don't get to talk. Let's go back over to watch together. Give me a thumbs up if it's playing for you.
Hello.
Okay. That was a very substantial piece of work. and I'm sure people have a lot to say about it. Where I didn't, we've run over, so I think we should give this time to Taylor, and we'll talk about it either at the end of this class if Taylor gets done, which I suspect she won't, or at the beginning of next class. But I think that was 10 minutes longer than any of the other works. Which is not to say it, but you did good. You did good, you guys. Okay. It's an impressive work. I want you to leave the class feeling good about it, and I want to welcome Taylor now. And if you, by the way, if you haven't already, open up your Premiere and make sure you have your file with your materials, because you're going to work along with Taylor. And I'm going to share screen now. That's not the way I share screen. I mean, I'm going to allow everyone to share screen. And Taylor can move around the room, I think, and look at people's screens too. Or ask, she can ask any of you to share your screen too. So she can take a look at what you're doing if you need help. Okay, welcome, Taylor.
Thank you. Okay. Did you enable, could you make me a co-host actually?
Yes, I can do that. Let's see here, more, make co-host.
Okay. Cool. So this, why is it not recognizing? Give me 1 second. See if that works. Can you only see the Chrome window? Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me try something.
By the way, while Taylor's getting set up, so this is your time and this is your, your class. And if she's covering material you all already know, you can ask her to cover something else. And if there are things you have questions about, this is a chance to get those questions answered. I think I've told you guys before that as a father myself, I feel the need to make sure you're always conscious that this class is costing you $300, your family $300, and don't waste the $300 that your parents worked for. Get stuff out of this class, okay? I mean, not the whole class. I mean, this 3-hour period is costing you guys like $100 an hour. So ask questions, and Taylor, maybe it's possible that you have access to her after this class too. I mean, in the future, if you have technical questions or creative questions with filmmaking. Taylor's a fine young filmmaker herself. Okay, so make sure you get things out of this.
So if there's like anything, I know that y'all have been editing some already. So if there's like more specific things that you want to know, please let me know, because I'm happy to tailor this to whatever's you want to learn more. So if you want me to do like beyond just like basic like editing in Premiere, if there's more specific things like color grading or transitions or stuff like that, just let me know. I'm happy to do that. Okay.
Taylor, I
Yeah.
actually have a really specific question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I was using Premiere the last time, I think I messed something up in the libraries panel, because whenever I would be able to like upload something, I had more options for it. And now I like think I deleted one of the like ways to upload media and I can't do it anymore. I was wondering if you could help me with that real quick.
Yeah, go ahead and share your screen with me.
Okay.
And I will walk you through switching that up.
Okay, so right here, there used to be like a different option for me to upload things.
Okay, so.
And I deleted it by accident, and I don't know how to get
it. Okay, that's totally fine. Go where it says computer. Go ahead and drop that menu down, and then you do your library. And then, oh, it's wanting to pull from Adobe Stock. If you go up to, what is it? I think it's, if you go to File and then there's, or you go over Premiere Pro, there's like the preferences, and then open General. You make sure that what you have everything checked. Okay, that's fine. So go click cancel out of there and then go to File. And then, or is there like a thing that says like Windows in the top of that menu bar at all?
Yeah, window.
If you deselect libraries.
How do I deselect?
Oh, it just didn't switch. Go to work. Go ahead. What were you gonna ask?
Right here, where my arrow is, there was a second option for me to like import media from. I don't remember what it was called. I think everyone else has it on theirs, and I deleted it by accident, and I don't know how to get it back. And that's like where I would pull my clips and stuff from.
Okay. Premiere recently did an update, so the interface has changed again, but I know what you're asking. Let's see. Sorry, y'all. I know this is like probably a little disorienting.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Don't apologize. Select Media Browser from that menu. And then if you double click in the top gray section, just outside of the letters, go slightly over to the right, sorry.
What?
If you double click there in that gray space at the top, and it should make it smaller. Dang, why didn't it decrease in size? Good job, Taylor. Do close or do panel and then do stacked panel group. And then do that right click again where you did before, and then do close panel. And then I think it has to do with whatever version of Premiere you're on. And so anytime that you want to import media, you'll have to do go to Windows and then Media Browser and import your media that way. There's probably like the easiest thing I would suggest like after this is to just uninstall Premiere from your computer and then reinstall it. And so that may be easiest. But yeah.
Okay.
I hope that's helpful. Okay. Oh, cool. That's helpful, computer. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start a project. And so go ahead and click new project, and you're gonna have a like window that will pop up, and it will have like a name and a location. Go ahead and name the file whatever you want, and then the location, it's gonna put it in the default of wherever you put the last like Premiere file. Go ahead and change that to wherever your files are and where you're gonna be working. So just click browse. And so I'm also gonna do that myself. And then let's see if, and then keep all the other default settings the same. That all is fine. Yes. I'll go with yes. Okay, so this is what you're gonna see when you open up Premiere and you start a new project. You're just gonna have a complete blank slate. on my screen, I have these different windows open. You may not have that, which is fine. But if you go to window, you'll see all these effects panels available here as well. You can also go to workspaces under window, and that's where you can see this main Windows, what Premiere calls workspaces that I have up here. And so depending on which version of Premiere you're using, you can drag your files directly into Premiere. The new version, you have to import them. And so to import them, you're just going to do File, Import, or you can do Command I or Control I. And then you're just going to want to find wherever the files are. And so if you're working in the folder that I have, or using your own materials, whatever works for y'all, go ahead and import all of that. And then just click import, and it's going to load and it's going to start rendering, and you'll start seeing it pop up in this box down here. And so everything is here now. And what you're going to do is, to start off, just pick a clip and drag it into your sequence. And the sequence is this bottom, what they're calling a timeline. Drag it in there, because what you're going to see in your project box, or what they call like their bin, is another clip has appeared, but it looks like the exact same name as the clip that you just added, but it's actually your sequence. And it gets really confusing sometimes if you're dragging clips in. And so go ahead and right click on this clip and rename it to whatever you want, so you know what it is. And so I just do main sequence, so I know. And then you'll notice right above your timeline, it will change here. So now that you're in, when you look at the bin, okay, you know that this clip is, okay, this is actually the sequence. And you can tell that by, there's a different kind, there's like a blue little icon that when you hover over it, it says sequence. And then I'm actually just gonna go ahead and delete that clip, because now it is now like registering as, okay, the sequence is set up, I'm ready to begin. And so the next thing that I'm going to do is show you two different ways that you can kind of cut your clips and organize them. And so the first one that I'll do is I'll start with marking and using markers in Premiere. That's the method that I tend to go with, depending on what kind of clip it is. And so I'm someone who usually shoots doc most of the time. And so I'm usually doing like interview clips. And so I prefer to mark stuff, because then I can pull specific segments out instead of just having to like drag the clip in the sequence and cut it, which I'll also show you. Even if you're doing narrative, I think that's a really strong strategy, because as you'll see in a second, anytime you mark something, it will appear and it will always stay there. And it also just helps your workflow if you mark it, so you don't have to like go back and re-watch a clip to find what you're wanting, because you've marked it before. And so I'm gonna start with, just pick one of these clips. I'm gonna use this one. And if the files I have, you may already have see that there's like little green flags on it. To get rid of those, just right click in this box anywhere, and then do clear all markers, and it will go back to not having anything. All right, so you'll notice that you have this little add marker flag on the very far left. And you can also press your M key on your keyboard. And so this is gonna be really loud, so sorry. So I'm gonna watch this and then look down for me. So say I'm gonna start the clip here, right? So what you can do is you can right click and do add marker, which is in the middle of your drop down, and a green flag will show up. But you can also just, I'm gonna go further in. So if I want to end here, right, I'm gonna just press the M key and another flag will pop up. And say you want to move the marker to a different point in the clip, you can select, just click on it and then drag it, and it will move it. And then wherever your like playhead will move along with the marker you just selected, which is super helpful. So this is the segment that I'm going to choose. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it into the timeline. If that has that window up, just say change existing sequence settings. That's my bad for not clearing the metadata from these clips when I use them. And so once it's in your timeline, you'll notice that these flags are on your clip, which is the exact same thing that matches up with that is in where you were previewing it. And so if you haven't used Premiere before, you'll see these two windows. And so the window on the left corresponds with clips in your bin. And so to change that, you just double click on a different clip and it will pop up here. The main window to the right is your main sequence. So anything that is like in your film, that's what you're going to be looking at when you edit. So now that we've pulled the clip in and there's these green flags, the easiest way that you can do is you'll see that there's this menu bar in between your bin and your sequence that has all the tools that you'll basically need. And to cut a clip, you're going to use this razor blade tool, and when you hover over it, it says it. But what you'll notice in Premiere and across Adobe software is that there will be something in parentheses, and whatever that like letter or whatever is the keystroke for switching to that tool or using it, which that's my biggest tip for streamlining your editing process is learning the keystrokes, because it adds up when you're trying to like find it again when you're actually editing. And so I'm going to press C and switch to the razor tool. And what you'll notice now when you hover over the sequence, you have a different icon. And so it looks like a razor blade with a red slash through it. But when you hover over a clip, it goes away. And so you're just going to hover where the flags are and it will automatically kind of sync up with it. So you get an exact cut to where you marked it previously. And so I'm going to mark on either side. And then I'm going to go back to the selection tool, which is your cursor, or just press the V key. And then I'm just going to highlight, and to highlight a clip, and it's less tedious than like individually selecting it. So just like click on one of the tracks above that's empty and just draw like a little box. And then I'm just going to press the delete key to delete it. And so now you're left with the segment that you had marked that you are now going to use. And so you can drag it anywhere, and you'll also see this yellow line pop up. And this just denotes like that Premiere has rendered the clip. This is what is going to be considered like part of your film. And once we export, that will become very important. And so that is kind of I went kind of fast with explaining the second way of just using the cutting tool. Are we all good? Do you have any questions? Do I need to go back over anything? We good? This is pretty the base level of what we're doing in Premiere. So, all right. So you can do this process with all of your clips. And so what I'm going to do now, and I also let y'all play around with, is go through the clips, pick different segments that you want to choose from, and just play around with marking them and cutting them and kind of setting up a sequence. I'll give y'all like 2 or 3 minutes to kind of play around with that. And I'll do the same as well.
How do you mark it again?
Yeah, so let me pick a different clip. So double click on the clip that you're working in. And so on the left-hand window, there is this add marker tool on the very left. You could also just press your M key. And so I'm just going to go to a different point in this, and I'm just going to press this little flag marker, and this green flag will pop up. And then if you're like starting from the beginning of a clip, you don't have to add a second one. But if you're using like a middle portion of a clip, you'll need a second one just so you know where to stop the clip itself. And then I'm gonna go to a different point and do the same. Just mark it. And then what you can do is to bring this clip in, you can either drag it from the bin or from here and just drag it into your timeline or your sequence, and then you'll see the green flags. And that's when you'll switch to the razor tool or press C and hover over it and cut, hover over it and cut. and then just delete the 2 other portions. That makes sense. Okay. So one other thing that I'll also add for this is, say that you've like marked it or you've cut something and it's a little too late, or you need a little bit before, you can highlight the clip, and when you go to the very edge of it, you'll see like a little red bracket with an arrow. If you click on the end of your clip, it'll highlight the ends, and you can drag it, and you'll see like on your window where you're watching like your actual film, it'll split into 2, just so it shows you that like, oh, okay, I'm going back in time, so there's something there. And so now it will show more of the clip than before, and the flag will still stay there, but you've extended the clip to have a longer amount of time. So that is something you can also do as well. And I'm going to stop screen sharing for 1 second and then reshare it, so I don't share the computer audio with y'all, so you can hear me as I'm editing. All right, we're back. Okay. So are we good? We're comfortable with that? Sweet. Okay. So what you may notice is that this clip, or rather this one's a better one, that this clip seems more zoomed in than the other clip when you look at it when it was in your bin, you were watching the footage. So now I'm going to get into manipulating the video itself and framing it in your film. Premiere kind of like automatically, it doesn't crop things in, but it like tries to adjust it to whatever aspect ratio it is. And so to go and change that, make sure that you're under the editing workspace in the very top panel. You can also be in effects. Those are the kind of main 2 that you're going to be working in. And then you'll see above the window on the left-hand side, effect controls will be here. If you're not in the editing or effects window or workplace, you may not see effect controls. And so just make sure that's what workspace you're working under. And so I'm going to go into effect controls, and you're going to select the clip that you're working on in your timeline, and all of these different settings will pop up. And so the effect controls panel is kind of your home base for once you start adding transitions, whether that's for video or for audio, or if you're fixing audio, or if you're stabilizing your image, all of that stuff, which I'm happy to go into. But this is also like your base kind of starting place for fixing your video and manipulating it. And so what you'll see is it will automatically have 2 categories. So you have video and you have audio. And so you have position, and the position, this first number is on your X axis, and the second number is your Y axis, so up and down. And so right now, from what I can tell, it's pretty centered. It's fine. I don't have an issue with it. And so you'll see scale. And so right now it's scaling to 100% for to fit in whatever the aspect ratio the default is in Premiere. Sometimes it's 4:3, sometimes it's 16:9. It just depends. And what you can do is if you hover over the number, you'll get like a little like pointer finger and like 2 arrows on the side. If you click on the number while it's there, your pointer will go away, but it's okay. But you can drag your cursor left or right, and you'll see that it starts to change the scale. And so if you move your cursor to the left, it's going to go smaller. If you go to the right, it's going to go bigger. And so when you're putting a clip and you're changing the size of it, just make sure that it fits in the screen. And so you don't get this black border here, but just so it fills it. And so when I shot this clip, the framing was a little off. And so I'm actually going to go into the position and use the first number and drag my cursor to the left just to center this a little bit. But then you'll see that, okay, because it wasn't framed right, there's this black bar again. So then you'll have to go back and increase or increase your scale so it fits just enough and you don't see that. This is really helpful because we're humans and we're not always going to get like the perfect framing even if it's a great shot and you get the take that you want, once you bring it into editing, it may not be positioned the way you want. And so this is a great way to kind of fix that. And I try not to abide by just fix it in post, because I find it's just editing is easier if you can shoot it in camera as precise or as exact as you can. But if for by chance you do mess something up, you can fix it here. There's also rotation, and so if you shot a clip that's like off level, you can do the same thing, and so it's going to rotate it depending on whatever degree you want. I will say that depending on which version of Premiere you're using, you can pull up a rule of thirds grid to help you with that framing. My version doesn't have that. But if you're not super great at just like eyeballing what's center and what's level, that is an option that you can do as well. And it just depends on like which version you're in. So yeah. Are we good with that? That makes sense. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions?
Can you go over the when you were on the scale part and you drag your mouse to and it like showed it in the video, because I'm trying to do it on the software and I don't know if I'm clicking the wrong thing.
Okay, totally fine. So when you hover over the number, you'll get this pointer that like, and then you have like 2 arrows. And so if you are like in the gray side of the box as well, it will also register, and you can just drag your mouse left or right. But you can also use the numbers. And so if you double click on the numbers, it will open up a window, like a little highlight box, and you can just type in a number and play around with that if using the like pointer tool or the cursor isn't as easy for you. That's something that I do a lot, is just using the numbers and just playing around with that. I think it goes a little faster, honestly, instead of just having to watch it, if you can kind of just like aim for what you think is going to fit in the frame. But yeah, did that make sense?
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Okay. So this is kind of the basis for editing your video clips in a sequence. And so now I will open it up to y'all for how in depth you want me to go, because I want this to be helpful for you and so that you can get out of this what would be most beneficial for the films that you're making. So do you all want effects, transitions? Do you want color grading? I'm happy to do really anything. So just let me know what y'all want. Effects. Okay. Do y'all want to know using text as well? I know I saw in one of the films y'all were doing subtitles. So I guess I can also do text. And I'll also do a little bit of audio stuff as well, just to kind of give you a good basis. And so to do effects, depending on which version of Premiere, if you're in the editing workspace, you may get this effects panel. Sometimes it only appears in the effects like workplace up top. Very annoying, but it's Adobe. And so what you will find, so I'm gonna actually pull a different clip in and just, this is a short clip, so I'm just gonna pull that, and I'm gonna pull this. Go ahead and actually, y'all, bring in like 3 or 4 clips, because the effects and transitions only is like helpful when you have multiple clips in your sequence. So go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna mark. Okay. So I'm gonna fix this, bring the scale out. And then just drag all of this over. All right, so once you start doing effects, it's really important to keep in mind the different tracks that you have. And so in Premiere, they automatically like divide the like file into video and audio. It's put together, but like it's attached to each other. So even if you just click on the clip, you'll see that it will highlight both the audio and the video track. But in order to do an effect or transition in between clips, they have to be on the same track next to each other. So you have like an equal split of the transition. And so I am going to bring this one in and just put it next to each other as well as this. And so what you'll notice is that for the audio, you'll have like you'll have like a left and a right ear. And so that's why you have two little like audio waves. And so if the first thing I'll kind of do is I guess I'll do audio since I'm kind of like already on that train. What you'll notice when you like click on the clip and when you go into effect controls, you now have this audio portion here. And so you have the level and then like the number, and then you have a little time wheel. They call it a toggle animation. I'm really not sure why, but if you want to change like the entire volume of a clip, so if you just want to decrease or raise the volume of the entire thing, deselect this little clock icon and then change the volume. So I'm just going to decrease this to, I don't know, I'll just do -5 for now. And a general rule of thumb for audio is like the like money spot is staying within -6 and -12. Anything above 0 will distort your audio for the listener. And so even if you go above -6, just try not to go above 0. If you're doing it like in the clip itself, that's fine. But if in this panel, when you go to audio clip mixer, keep everything here at 0 and just leave that alone. Otherwise, your audio will distort. And so have this decrease the volume. But say in this clip, I just want to mute the entire audio. There's 2 ways you can go about it. What I find the easiest is to designate one of my audio tracks as like a muted track, because if I am having B-roll or if I'm having like if you're in like a narrative film and you have certain segments that you're going to put like audio effects on it, I find it just helpful to just have an entire track that's muted so you can keep track of that instead of trying to like remember which of your clips you muted. So I'm going to make audio 3 that. And so if you click on your audio and you drag your cursor down, it will move the audio to this 3rd audio track. And then I'm just going to click this mute button here. And so now when you like play it, there's no audio attached to this anymore. So that's one way you can do it as well. I'm also going to pull a different segment from this clip. That's honestly like a lot of what editing is and what takes up a lot of time is having to rewatch your clips and having to make sure that like it's the piece that you want, does it flow? And so even if you've like marked a clip and you're happy with the piece you pull, you may have to go back in and change it depending on how you want the flow of your film to go. And so I find that if you like, when you're marking your clip, to go ahead and like mark whatever pieces you like within that clip, so it's a little faster and you don't have to just always go back and rewatch your clips. It's also helpful too. I don't do it all the time because I feel like I'm not someone who overshoots, and so I'm pretty mindful of what clips I have and what I don't have and what I've shot. But if you're someone who shoots a lot and you're trying to organize it, go ahead and like rename your clips so you know like what it is. And so that way, instead of reading like a file number, you are aware of like what the clip actually is, what's in it, etc. So I've muted this track, and say I want to mute this other track, but if I have like another one after it that I didn't want muted, or I only wanted to mute a portion of it, if you go into this effects panel to the very far right, you'll see all of these different kind of settings to choose from. And so under audio effects, you're going to see a really massive assortment of folders and different options. But what Premiere does is they automatically separate these three kind of, I don't know how to call it. It's kind of like your default go-to kind of audio settings. And so say, like I was saying before, if you don't want your audio to really go above 0, but you need to like add gain or enhance the volume of something, using volume is really helpful. And so to apply an effect, this is for video or audio and even transitions, you're just going to click on it and you're going to drag it and put it over the audio segment that you're using. And so what you'll see is this will change to purple. And so that's just kind of how like a Premiere designates that, hey, there's an effect on this. It's not the original audio anymore. And so it'll be this purple flag now. But you'll also notice that this second volume has popped up, and that's totally fine. Just keep in mind that the first volume is the original audio layer, and then the second one is the effect that you just applied. And so why this is helpful in changing the volume by adding this is because it kind of like puts an overlay over your track instead of like changing the actual clip itself. And so if I want to decrease the audio of this, I'm going to change this to -10, and you'll notice that it changes here, but not on the clip itself, original volume at 0. And that's totally fine, because what Premiere is going to register is that I've decreased the volume of this specific clip to -10 decibels. And so that's like an easy way to do that. And you can do the same thing with muting. And so what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to get rid of this volume layer. And so to do that, what you can do, there's a couple ways you can do it. And so if you right click on the clip, you'll see in this very top section, you do remove attributes. And I'm going to keep all of this selected. And so make sure that volume is selected and then click OK. And it's going to get rid of the effect that you want. Once you have like multiple effects on something, there will be a bunch listed. And so you'll have to be more specific about the ones that you want to remove. You can also just do undo if you did the step like where you applied it right before. And so, yeah. So say I want to like mute the clip, another way you can do it as well is there's this mute option. And so I'm going to drag it here. And so when you see this mute option pull up, you'll see that there's like 3 different options for muting. And what general rule of thumb, when you have these layers, especially in audio, Premiere kind of like separates it. It does like panning audio, which has to do with like surround sound and like if it's on the left or like the right speaker. And so because you have like mute 1, that's like left, and mute 2 is right, but this mute on top is like functions for everything above that audio, so it's changing the entire audio. And so if you apply mute, just applying it doesn't mute your clip. You have to go into mute and do this drop down and drag this bar all the way to 1 in order for your clip to be muted. Otherwise, it won't mute, and you'll be kind of confused of like, well, why is this playing if I muted it? You have to change, you have to move the bar all the way to 1, and that's just saying like muting it all the way. And so make sure you do that, and just ignore mute 1 and mute 2 because now this clip will be muted. And so that is kind of the go-to kind of audio effects I do if your audio seems to be kind of pretty much level all the way across. If you're just trying to even out your volume or muting, that's kind of the way to go. Say that the audio is kind of grainy, it's kind of noisy, you can hear the air conditioning, there's like a hum in the background, or you want to enhance whoever's speaking, or a whole variety of things. When you're like repairing audio, I guess that's how I'll phrase it. There's 2 kind of like folders I would recommend working under, is noise reduction and restoration. And so you'll have these 4 kind of options. And so if you hear like air conditioning or you hear any like low rumbles or anything like that, use de-hummer and it will eliminate that. And if you have de-noise, that's really great for wind, or if you have any kind of like rustling in the background or higher frequencies, I'd recommend using either of those. And so I'm going to pull a different clip and I'm going to pull, not that, one of these, or no, I'm going to do. So let me change the scale of this, lower it down. And so if I have like this clip that's like leaves rustling in the background, and it's like super loud or super pronounced, I'm going to bring in de-noise and it's going to reduce it. And the kind of default settings that it puts it on is really great. But you can also change the like frequency map. And so if you go into custom setup and click edit, you'll see how it's processing it. I either use this like, it's just going to even out all the frequencies in it, or I use this bracket that will just eliminate lower and higher. You can also do this if you have like, again, like air conditioning or like a low frequency. This is really helpful if you just kind of want to do like a one-stop shop of just trying to even out your sound. And so when you increase it, it's just going to change how much it's processing and how much it's filtering. And so when I play the clip now, you'll see this kind of waveform happen, and the blue is what's actually happening, but the red is what's filtering out, and so it flips it. And so it's making it as level as possible. And this is also keeping track of your audio, of your volume, and how it's actually playing and how it's being processed. And so that's what I would recommend if you're just trying to like fix your audio. The easiest way is to just do de-noise and then do a custom setup and process, do a specific kind of audio layer. And so to get like an actual like clean, crisp audio, I'd recommend doing an amount between like 60 and 100. Otherwise, you're not really gonna like tell a difference. So yeah, if that makes sense. Do I need to do anything else for audio? I'm gonna do all the transition stuff all together because it's pretty similar. We good? Cool. All right. So what I'm gonna do now is show y'all some transitions and video effects. And so I'm gonna go ahead and close this folder and pop open video effects. And so Premiere has a lot of different settings, a lot of different options, and it can be kind of like overwhelming. What I will say is that there are a lot of like discussion boards on Reddit and as well like on like Adobe where like that's like a specific question of like, okay, it's really grainy because my exposure is off. How do I fix this? If you like search for that specific thing, it will tell you which effect to do to correct your clip. And it really just depends on what kind of clip you're using. But I know that's something that is kind of a pretty common issue is dealing with noise and grain in a clip. And so if you're going to fix that, use median or noise. And so it's not really going to work on any of these clips because they're exposed correctly, and so it's not going to super work well. But if you're in low light, it's going to be very similar. It's going to pop up in your effects control and it's going to show up here. And so when you go in and change it, it will basically say like amount of noise and a percentage. You can decrease this percentage, I believe, or you used to, but you can change the amount of it. So if you like, obviously not 100%, but again, Premiere just had a recent update, and so where they've like placed stuff is different. And so I would just recommend, if there's like a specific thing of how you want to like correct a clip, or you have a general kind of problem across all of your clips, go ahead and just like look it up in Google and specific discussion threads and just make sure that you put whatever version of Premiere you're using. Otherwise it will be called something different or may not match what you're working. And what I will also say is if you're using a video effect from this panel, so let me actually, I'm gonna put sharpen on here. I guess let me actually go back and put noise on here. You'll notice for some video clips that this will turn red. This just means that Premiere hasn't fully rendered or processed it yet. You won't be able to export your film if it has not rendered fully. And so it takes anywhere from like 15 minutes to like several hours, depending on which effect you added or stuff to render. And so just keep that in mind. That's also why I try not to rely on using these video effects to kind of fix your footage, just because it makes your file really large, and so exporting just takes a really long time, and it just takes a long time to render something. But I think the kind of main settings that I would recommend using, this option auto reframe is great. It will automatically like fix your framing of your shot, which is cool. And then you'll see this like folder with transitions here. Just ignore that. The transitions you want are going to be under like video transitions and audio transitions. But all of these are really specific to whatever your film is using, whatever look you're trying to get, stuff like that. And so if I am wanting to fade in between clips, if you go into, let me close this, into video transitions, you'll see that there's all of these different kind of options. What I would recommend doing is sticking in the folder of dissolve. The other options are very like kitschy, like weird kind of effects that I don't love. But the ones that look the cleanest, the ones that like look the most kind of normal, I'll say, are in this box. And so what Premiere has done is put a blue box around what they're deeming as like, hey, this is like a great go-to transition to use. If you're not really sure what to do, just use this. And so cross dissolve is like the fade in between clips. And so to add that, what you'll have to do is drag it and hover it over a clip. And if you put it in between two clips, it will automatically split it in between the two clips, which is super cool. And it will pop up here. But if you just want it like at the end, if like at the very end of your film, you want to like fade to black, you're going to pick the dip to black transition, and you're going to put it at the end of the clip, and it will only apply there. But say you want to change the length of the transition, it's really long, or you want it longer, or you want it shorter. If you click on the transition itself, not on the videos clips or anything like that, but on the transition that you just applied itself, it will pop up here and have duration. The default kind of transition is like 1 second. And so depending on your film, whatever clip you're using, whatever kind of effect you want, it will like, it just depends on the like tone and the mood of your film of how long you're going to do. I would say stick with like anywhere from like 30 seconds to 1 second is like the smoothest kind of transition. But again, it just depends. But you can also, I honestly like double clicking on the transition and just getting the small window instead of looking up here. I just find it kind of confusing sometimes. And what you'll notice is that there's like 4 sets of like zeros and like numbers in between. So whatever you see is like 1, that's your seconds, and then what is here is your milliseconds. But your milliseconds isn't going to go from like 0 to 59. It's going to be the number that is like your frames per second. And so it's only going to go to a maximum of 23 in this number. And so if you put 24, it's automatically going to jump to 2 seconds, and that has to do with how you shot it. And so so say you want it to like be like 1 second and like almost, I don't know, like 2 seconds. If you put in like 56, it's going to change it to 2 seconds and 26 seconds instead of doing like a minute and like almost or something, because how it's reading it and how it's applying a transition is based on your frame rate. And so I'm pretty sure that most of y'all are going to be using 24 frames per second. If you're doing 4K, sometimes it will be 50 frames per second or 60. So that's just important to keep in mind, that if you like add a transition, this second set of numbers of these last zeros, your maximum is only going to be like 23 or like 59. You're not going to get all the way to 60 depending on your frame rate. And so just keep that in mind. And so I'm going to do like 1 second and 15 milliseconds. And so it will apply it. So I feel like that was kind of confusing. If that makes sense, let me know. But in general, when you apply a transition, it's based off of your frame rate of the actual clip itself. Cool, that makes sense. I need to go back over anything. Do we have any specific questions?
Does anyone have anything they want to know to use in this next project? Transitions, color grading. Has anyone fooled around with color grading in Premiere?
I have a question with the color grading and lighting kind of thing. Not a question, but I just want to like just know more about how it works and stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So there's a couple ways you can go about it. What I would recommend doing, and what I prefer to do with my own films, is I will, or let me show you, since we're still in the effects panel, you'll see that there's presets and Lumetri presets. And so these are kind of like Adobe's like default kind of presets, and so when you can apply these and it will change the kind of look of it. If you're like someone who like doesn't want to think about all the like technical side of trying to get like a look to your film, use a preset, and you can download presets offline for free. And I'm happy to email Rob like a folder of all the presets that I have that you can import into Premiere Pro and use, that like I've either like bought or downloaded. I'm happy to give that to y'all. But when you like when you click one of these and you drag it, it's going to automatically apply, and you'll see that it will change. But you'll also see that like this Lumetri color will pop up, and all of this is here. And so I can explain all that, and when I show you the other way to do color. And that's why I would recommend not using the presets listed here, because it's really difficult to keep track of all of this in this small effect controls, especially if you're trying to get the same look across your entire film. I find there's another way to do it that's far easier. And so I'm going to go into color and the workspaces on the top. And what you'll see now is the default thing that it will open is creative, but I would start in the order that it has displayed. And so start with basic correction. And to just open that up, you're just going to click in that gray space and it will open it up. And so when you're color grading, the like most important thing to keep in mind is that if you want to have like a film that has that like classic teal orange cinematic look, do not change the color with the white balance, temperature, and tint. The point of white balance is to keep your whites as true white, not to add a specific color. And so when it's tempting to just see these colors of like, okay, I'm gonna just change it here. All you're doing with temperature and tint is to just make your whites look as white as possible. And so in this shot, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm not gonna change anything with the white balance. And then you'll see this next panel that's tone. All of this has to do with correcting your exposure. And so you have exposure that's kind of like changing the overall brightness. You have contrast, and then you have highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. And the simplest way that I can explain the difference between highlights and whites and then like shadows and blacks is that highlights and shadows, when you change that, if you're like changing the highlights, when you change the highlights, it's only changing, it's targeting anything that is like considered a highlight in that shot. And so if I like go in and increase this, anything that's is like marked as like a highlight in camera, it's going to change just the highlights, as opposed to if you change the whites, it's kind of changing like the amount of white in your entire image. And so if I change white, it's going to like change like the entire exposure itself. There's a lot of really, really great resources online, especially on YouTube, where people kind of explain exposure and what these different things mean. And I'm just, for time purposes, I'm not going to go super in depth, but I'll put my email in the chat at the end, and I'm happy to answer any questions having to do with correcting your exposure and what all of this means. But as far as color grading, where you're going to kind of live is in creative and curves. And so curves is pretty complicated. And so for 107, I wouldn't really recommend using curves because it's easy to mess up very quickly. But again, just email me and I'm happy to answer any questions of how to use these curves. It's not the same as a tone curve like in photography, or if you're used to using Photoshop or Lightroom, it's not the same. But I'm happy to answer those questions. But where you're going to kind of live for the creative section of actually color grading and changing this and trying to get an effect to it is, you'll see this panel that says look, When you drop this down, there are presets for days. So many different options, and these are really great. These are the most natural kind of presets to use, and they're great. I love these. I honestly use these a lot, and so they all have a distinct look. I know several filmmakers for like Hollywood films use these looks and use these presets because they're fantastic.
Taylor?
Yeah.
You might show them just a simple S curve, because that's something that they could do, and you can get a lot of bang for the buck out of it without knowing much about what's going on.
Yeah, very true. Okay, so when you go under curves, you'll see there's saturation curves and there's all these different options, but you'll also see these RGB curves. And so to add a point to here, you're just gonna click and it's gonna create this point. And so in general on a curve, what's on the bottom end is usually your shadows, your darks, your blacks, and what's on the top is your whites, your highlights, your brights, things like that. And so say that I want to have a little more contrast and I want a little more depth in the shot. If I go in and if you drag this up, it's gonna change, it's gonna eliminate all that. But if I pull down, it's gonna add some depth, and you can also move the point itself to kind of change it. But what is a good way to keep it balanced is to put a second marker, and it will kind of do like, it will create an S curve that Rob was just talking about. And so it won't change like the entire curve of it, but it will change in a specific spot. And so I'm gonna add a little more depth here. And you'll notice now that the curve isn't like just like, it's not just like an arc, but it's starting to become an S. And so I'm gonna do it really drastic so you can see this kind of difference, that you'll get this kind of S curve. And so now that I'm just gonna adjust it to what I want it to look like. I wanna add a little more depth to it. And so what you can do too is if you go back into your bin on the very bottom left and you double click here, you can kind of compare like what it looked like originally to what it looks like now to kind of get a sense of what you're working with. And so the S curve, using an S curve keeps your exposure balanced, as opposed to a basic correction where that kind of like targets a specific thing that you're wanting to edit. And so I don't use curves a lot just because I prefer to get really specific, but for y'all, I would actually recommend using this curve. So thank you, Rob, for pointing that out, because it's just a great way to keep your exposure balanced and keep it level all the way across without having to like think too much and get super technical in it. And so just when you're using this curve, make sure that you have 2 points so it actually makes an S instead of having like just like a straight line or arc. So, and make sure that you're selected on the white, because that kind of signals to your mirror like, hey, this has to do with exposure, hey, this has to do with light and shadows, as opposed to blue, green, or red. That is connected to color, and it gets, using those, I find like that's an easy place to mess up. And so instead of manipulating the color with these, that's when I would go into creative and color wheels and changing that. But this curve is really, really great to just kind of correct it. And I find it really helpful. Just make sure that you have 2 points and it makes an S shape, and it will keep it pretty balanced all the way across your shot. So that is like color grading in like compressed. But I'm happy to do another workshop with y'all that's specifically in color grading, especially for your final films, because color grading, it's something that a lot of people don't know, but it really is a game changer for films. And it really that's how you kind of develop like what your aesthetic looks like and how to like make your films feel like you. But color grading it's probably one of the hardest things in editing. but it's also my favorite. And so I'm happy to do another one specifically on that, because I think I kind of brushed over it a lot. It is kind of complex, but I'm gonna put my email down for y'all, so you can just like shoot me. I'm pretty fast at responding, and so if you have any questions, please just send them to me. Yeah, so if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll hang out for a couple minutes, but I'll also we'll hand it back to Rob. So
Are you guys good? Anything for Taylor? Let's give Taylor a hand. Thank you so much.
absolutely. I guess the one thing is I'll show you how to export stuff to.
Oh yeah.
So you'll see that this section has like this yellow bar, and that's like your main kind of sequence here. What I will say is if you have like clips like any other point in your timeline, when you go to export, it's gonna like export like that entire timeline and like everything that's in your sequence. So just to make sure that like what you're exporting is just like the section that you want, if you go to the like slightly outside the end of your film here and you go to this bracket here, you'll see a mark in and a mark out. I'm going to click mark out, or just press your O key, and it's going to highlight everything in here. And so Premiere is now like, you just told Premiere like, hey, this is what I want to export. This is the main film, the main section. And so I'm just going to go in and shorten it to the end of the film. And so to export, you're going to go to File, Export, Media, or Command M, Control M. And it's going to open up slowly but surely this window. And if you were to like write anything down from this workshop, this is what to write down. This is very important. This is like makes or break your film. This is where you can like ruin the entire quality of it. And so for format, you always want it to be H.264. That is the general film package for how the industry, that's like the industry standard for films. It is an H.264. You always want your format to be that. You'll see a lot of different options and it's tempting to switch to a different one, but just go with this. This also like unifies your film, and so you can upload it to like YouTube or Vimeo or anywhere else and it won't change the quality of your film. And so it kind of like not neutralizes it, but it just like preserves your film to the best ability. So make sure it's always H.264. And then to change for presets, what I would recommend doing, even though it has like Facebook or Twitter or Vimeo or YouTube, what I would recommend doing honestly is doing the high quality options. And so match shorts, basically like if you use two different cameras to shoot, like you had like your main camera and then you had like your B-roll camera, if you do match source, it's going to match to the quality of that specific camera as opposed to having a consistent level of quality across the entire film. And so that's why I would recommend using one of the high quality. And so I would recommend doing 1080p HD. If you're shooting 4K, you can also use the 2160p 4K, but what I will say is 4K files, especially films that you have effects, you have transitions, you have audio, all these things, they're massive files, they're huge. But the perk of shooting in 4K is that when you export it as 1080p, the quality is preserved. And so I would just recommend always doing high quality 1080p HD. That's what I use. And then to change the name of the file itself, you're gonna click what it says output name in this blue link that's been highlighted. And it will pull up like wherever the like last thing that you had open in Finder or in Windows, like it's gonna pull up there. So just make sure that you save the file in the correct place. And so I'm gonna stick this here. And so I'm going to put this here and then make sure the file format is MP4. Sometimes it will show up as a different option, but just make sure it's MP4 and then click save. And then what you'll see now is that you can preview this and it will show up. All right, cool. This is the segment that I pulled from. And now what the button that will like show up as highlighted is Q. What you want is the button next to it, export. And so I'm going to click export and it's going to encode it and then it's going to render it and export it. And it's going to give you a time that how long it takes. So this is only like a 6-second kind of film, so it didn't take that long, but depending on your computer and the speed of it, it will take anywhere from, I don't know, like 10 to an hour pretty much, of just depending on a lot of different factors. But just keep in mind that if you're like going to like turn a film in for an assignment, give yourself enough time to export, because exporting takes a really, really long time. And make sure like your computer doesn't fall asleep as well, because otherwise it will stop the export. So just give yourself enough time to export your project so that it's completed and it looks good. But yeah, that's how you export in Premiere. And then you can go to the file itself where you just saved it and look at it and see it. And then from there, you can upload it wherever you're uploading it or submit it and whatever else. So yeah, that is kind of Premiere in a nutshell. So let me give y'all my email. So, and then, like I said, I'll email Rob a folder that has a bunch of presets, and I'll give you the instructions for how to install that into Premiere, as well as we'll send you stuff for how to install it in Resolve to use like color grading kind of stuff like that. But yeah.
Cool. I will put whatever you send me, I'll put it up in Canvas so everyone has access to it.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to tell you guys too that the reason they update Premiere so much is that Adobe has people in the field reps, and they're like there's a field rep at Turner in Atlanta, and that person just hangs out with the editors and figures out what problems they're having. And then they add like features. Like there's no one on earth that knows all the features that are in the Adobe Creative Cloud. And even if they did, in 3 weeks, there'll be different ones, So editing post in general, it's a lot like cooking, and there are rules that you need to learn, but there's all sorts of different ways to do pretty much anything. And so Taylor gave you an excellent intro, and her process. You might have another editor you talk to and they do things completely differently, but what matters is whether it works or not, and how fast you can make stuff work, By the way, I wanted to put out there on exporting that what Taylor said was correct. You should know there are people called compressionists, and their entire career is figuring out how to compress images efficiently for different uses. And so, when you're looking at something on TV and the black wall has like square patches floating around in it, has anyone ever seen that? It's because it wasn't compressed well, or it was compressed too much. And if you get really into compression, which I don't think we have any software that can even do it, you can even select like, this is the way we'll compress the blacks, and the midtones are going to be compressed in this other way for this scene because it requires more processing time in order to make them work. It can get super complicated, but these are just basic rules of thumb. Some cameras actually, especially journalism cameras used for journalism, they'll have ways to make proxies. So you have you'll be shooting something in 4K, but you'll also get like a 720p copy of it. Both of them will be laid down on the card. And what that's for is if you're in, let's say a few years ago, I was at Standing Rock, the Standing Rock protests in North Dakota, and there were a lot of journalists there, but not a lot of bandwidth. And you're trying to get, footage out over, bad internet, and a 4K takes about 8 times longer than a 720 image. And if people are going to watch it on Facebook, you don't need a 4K image. You know, what you need is the news out quickly. So you're going to, as you get more into making content, you're going to start getting more, in the same way you get more particular about exposure and whatnot, you'll get more particular about your settings for outputting media. But outputting it at a very high resolution setting and then letting, you know, Facebook or YouTube or Vimeo re-ingest it is a good basic strategy. I think that's what Taylor was basically pitching, to make a good output and then send it to services and let them do their thing.
And what I'll also recommend too is if you're color grading, depending on what camera you're using, because I know not all of y'all are filming on cameras, but if you are, for color grading, make sure that you're shooting in a neutral or a flat profile. And every camera setting is different where they keep color profiles. But if you shoot in a neutral or a flat color profile, it basically creates a really, like, it's a great canvas for applying different effects and different fixing your exposure and color grading and things like that. And I use in every camera too, like every manufacturer, like Sony and Canon and Nikon and the whole array, they each have different like colors they like make prominent. So Canon is like infamous for having like really neon greens, and Sony is infamous for having like really sharp blues. And so if you shoot in a neutral profile, it basically like eliminates that. And so you have like a very clean slate for applying color and effects and stuff like that.
Yeah, and just technically you have more chance, I can't remember, I think it's between 0 and 254 points for red, green, and blue. And if you shoot with the numbers up really high, when you try to adjust them, it's harder to get anything but what you already have. The image starts to break up very quickly. Whereas if you have the numbers down low, you have more place to play with them. And there's an expression baked in. And if some cinematographers they know exactly how they want the thing to look. And so they'll shoot it not flat, but they'll shoot it with the look baked in. And that makes it so you can't do anything with it in post. But I wouldn't recommend that. And it's not very popular. You could get fired for doing that. So unless you have an Academy Award, don't do that. And sometimes those men and women get fired too. So in any case, so shooting flat's great because you can do more in post. It's 10:55. We're going to discuss the last film next week. Taylor, thank you so much, and I'll see you this afternoon with the other class.
Absolutely.
This was great.
Yeah.
Anyone? Oh, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Were you just saying yeah? Oh, Juana? Yeah?
Oh, sorry, I was.
Oh. Anyone, any last questions or anything? Okay, good work, everybody. Oh, yeah, Ken.
So I was just wondering what I should do with this week's homework. Should I just...
Oh, for this week's homework, you should make an observational documentary.
No, I'm asking about like my last missing homework for this week's.
I'll respond to your email and we'll set up some time for you and I to discuss.
Great.
Okay, perfect. Okay, you guys, if you need anything, message me, and have a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you.
Good work, Harrison.
See you next week.
Yep.